me show you how to be cool on Instagram. So it's absolutely calm right now, and I went ahead and made my first exposure of the scene. Basically, it's this rock kind of in the middle with all these mud cracks around it. I'm just centering it, just putting all the emphasis on that one rock. And it's kind of a really kind of calm, coolish light right now, but the sun's gonna be coming up from over there. When that happens, I'll get some warm light sort of sent across it, which might be too high of contrast, but I'm gonna have my camera set up and ready, because when the sun starts to peak just barely above those mountains, you get this sort of in-between light, which is really beautiful. It's very fleeting, it's very hard to work with. But my goal is to see if I can get a photo during that light as well. But I have a feeling that this light right here might be the better light, because it's such a harsh subject. That soft light is what's gonna really make it look really nice. So I went ahead and made a total of 3 exposures. The first 2 were during a very calm, sort of cool light where everything was in shade. The first exposure of those 2, my stopwatch, I kind of forgot to wind it beforehand, and so it kind of stopped and I kind of guessed on it, but I did make the second exposure just because I wasn't quite sure how long my exposure actually was for that one. So the second one I have a lot of confidence in. I think I metered it pretty well. But then I waited for the time when the light that was off in the distance kind of swept towards me as the shadow was receding, as the sun was rising up over those mountains over there. And it's a transitional light. Sometimes it can be really cool looking, but I don't have a lot of confidence in that exposure, mostly because I'm pretty close to the mountains, and since I'm close to these mountains back behind me, the sun's already pretty high in the sky by the time it gets to me. And so it wasn't like that really kind of nice, warm light. It was just kind of a blah, sort of contrasty light. But who knows? We'll see how the film renders it. But it was a tough exposure just because that light does not last very long. And so we'll see how that worked out. But now it is time to pack everything up. I'm gonna go grab some breakfast, and then I'm gonna head over to some slot canyons nearby, just because that'll give me opportunity on a relatively cloudless day to find some interesting light back in those canyons. So looking forward to getting some breakfast and heading to another location. After grabbing some breakfast, I came over here to the Grotto Canyon area, and this is an area where you can drive pretty darn close to it if you got a 4-wheel drive. A lot of loose gravel and stuff that it kind of squishes around as you drive around. But anyways, I came over here. This is an area where I was a couple days ago, and there's some really nice slot canyons here. They're pretty small, they're pretty short, they're pretty rocky, and there's some areas that look pretty nice, but I ultimately didn't see anything I was necessarily wanting to photograph. But it's definitely fun to kind of come over here and scramble around during the midday. Now the plan is to head back to where I was this morning and see if I can find some more areas to photograph in the evening, because I think the conditions are going to be very similar. Calm, no clouds, stuff that I can very easily photograph with the camera that I have. There's some really cool mud textures, some areas with some variety, some little curled up mud, some bigger mud, some interesting patterns. So that'll be my goal, to head back over there and see what else I could find. So I drove back over here to the area that has all the mud cracks. This is where I was this morning. And I wanted to find sort of a different sort of photo than I had this morning. So this morning I had the rock that was kind of right in the middle anchoring the scene. And this mud looks a little bit different. And it's interesting because this area of mud, it was from a kind of flow of mud that came out from some hills. And it reminds me more of like a lava flow because it's really thick, it's gooey, it's kind of taken over the landscape, it's kind of built it up a little bit. But this particular area was interesting because we got the bigger cracks, you got the smaller cracks, you have kind of a flaky texture, there's some kind of lines moving through it. So I went ahead and already made 2 exposures. I made one just before the sun dropped behind the Panamint Range. The sun was about halfway behind the mountain range. And it was an interesting light. It was a softer, more dimensional light than the light I shot this morning when I had the sun hitting it just a little bit. But just like this morning, there was a very, very brief window when I could do that shot. I had just one opportunity. I took a second photo of the light kind of as it is right now, just kind of a calm, quiet light. And I'll probably wait just a little while longer and then do one more exposure of the scene, just so I have a variety of different sort of moods to go with. But feeling pretty good about exposing film on 2 different subjects today. And this might be all the mud stuff that I really want to shoot, just because there's some other areas that have some interesting mud, but some of it starts looking kind of gross and weird and stuff. So I want to avoid that stuff and go for sort of the clean, cool looking mud like this right here. So it's going to wait around a little longer and see if I can get some more light for one more photo.
If you love this content and want to help support my journey, you can do so by subscribing to my YouTube channel, telling a friend, or sending a voluntary contribution of just $24 a year with PayPal or Patreon. I depend on the generous support of people like you to produce this ad-free content. For more information on how to support me, please visit the donations section of my website. Thanks in advance for your support.